Okay, Jordan. So you're
Just
coming to.
gotta put on my presence.
That's right. This is important. You have to look present.
Okay, good.
So what's a circling weekend would you like? I just know the hour and a half that I saw in Boulder, which was impactful enough to have me want to bring you to Berkeley to do a workshop. But what can I expect during that workshop?
What was it that what was the impact that had you really want to have me come?
Huh. Probably the thing I remember the most is you mentioned something about responsibility, and it seemed both vulnerable. You seemed both vulnerable and strong early, and then our group of 30 people split up, and people did whatever. Some people get pissed off. Some people enjoyed each other, and then at some point I slid over to you, and I was like, "How's the responsibility thing going?" And you remember what you told me?
No.
You said like, "I'm taking responsibility for what's mine, and I'm not taking
No.
responsibility for what's not mine."
Yeah.
And then you got really interested in me, and I had a deep experience. So it was it was freedom. I really connected with Heather Higgins, who was sitting next to me, and just like we're still friends. We just chatted on Skype. I think it's an interesting dynamic that allows for people to get what they want.
That's awesome. Yeah, that particular workshop we're really like highlighting surrendered leadership, and it's kind of the core of I think what circling is about or points to is, and it even the title kind of holds this leadership aspect of like you're really self leadership. You're in every moment you're taking responsibility for what's yours, um, or if you're not, you're kind of dealing with the consequences of it. So yeah, when you're out of integrity, you can see how that affects your life and everything around you. And then, of course, in the workshop, we can practice that. You can kind of see, oh, if I take responsibility for this, this vulnerable attraction or this kind of joy that I'm afraid to show because I'm going to be ousted, or this anger that I've never really expressed. Like that's amazing. And yeah, the other side of it is the surrender of both. Yeah, you're surrendering what's not yours to take responsibility for, but you're also surrendering to the impact of the group. Like we're in another, we're in, we're always in connection with people around us, or with nature, or the environment, and what we do just it seems inescapably impacts the people around us. So we're really opening to that, to open yourself to share what's happening, even if it's being closed, and then to receive the feedback. It's in some ways it's simple. It's what we're always already doing, and in other ways, like bringing awareness to it, brings an incredible magic.
So one thing that I saw you do is that it seems to be a consistent thing for Circling Europe is you interrupted someone. Do you remember that? And how does that fit into everything?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the it's funny. It's all. I don't know if these concepts are useful, but the way it comes to me is it's kind of like the yin yang symbol of like there's the deeper you go into like yin, the deeper you go into yang, or you can, I think, and vice versa.
Mm.
And each one holds a piece of the other. So an interruption, to me, in one way, it's actually bringing in sharper discernment, sharper masculine, a sharper yang, of saying like, hey, like there is a structure here, or there's a power hierarchy, or there's what you're saying doesn't make any sense, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to just sit here and let you go on and on when there's 30 people that like really care about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, the strange irony of it, the white dot in the black paint, is that ends up creating more inclusiveness, because if I just let somebody go on without interrupting them, they're kind of, it's like a tyranny of the minority,
Mm.
or a tyranny of consensus, that like other people who have important things to say now are just they're following a social norm of not interrupting rather than like following their heart.
Yeah, it's captive audience.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of theory behind it. But usually what happens in the moment is I can tell, or I can't always tell what's happening for them, but I do have a pretty sharp eye for when somebody's really embodying what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the impact on me, and I think on all of us, it tends to be when people are fully alive in their being, it lights us up. And it doesn't matter what the emotion is. It doesn't matter if it's even like a deep grief. It's just so enlivening to be there with somebody. And if they're just kind of reporting about it, like telling us the weather report of their interior, it tends to be really boring and really dry. And my mind goes, like my attention just goes to other places. So it's like, yeah, sometimes I'm just owning what's true for me. Like, hey, I can't stay focused. I wonder if you're really there. Or sometimes I might just cut in and say, like now's not the time. It seems like something else is going on. And even in that, it's cutting in, but then being open to the impact.
So this opened up so many threads for me. One is T Group. Are you familiar with T Group? Have you played T Group?
Yeah.
And does it seem, like I've heard it, but when I was just new to Circling Europe, I heard that it's almost halfway to T Group because of that focus on the present moment that T Group has. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think T Group's like really a wonderful practice for developing, like, you know, like I think Guy will call the sovereign, this capacity to really know what's happening in you and share it. And yeah, like the thing about like if that's just it feels unbalanced. Like it feels like it only represents half of reality, which is that you're always speaking into a collective. So we found, like, for a while, we call, like, the circles we were doing were called leadership development circles, because people were pushed to their edge of their own personal leadership, like where they hide from discomfort, or where they're unwilling to really step up, or where they're unwilling to step back. But then what we found is that really de-emphasized the fact of surrender. So it's like, yeah, we just had to bring that back in because it just feels such an important part of reality.
It's surrendered leadership, yin and yang.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm getting chills, actually. And I think the reason I'm getting chills is I'm realizing that the reason I want to bring you over is so that I can have better C games. Right? And it's like the thing that's important, especially when we're putting Circle of Chiefs and Wildcard on the menu, is that people really take self-leadership seriously. And I think it's a hard skill for most people. So I kind of trust you to help show them the way so that I can play with them.
Yeah. And it really is like these balance, like these that support each other, where like your self-leadership is grown by your willingness and capacity to be in connection.
Totally. And actually, when you first said yin yang, what I was thinking of is Guy's warrior stage. And that's something that I love and I bring a lot in birthday circles. And I only do it when I feel the relationship. And it's like,
right.
Like when I'm already related, then I can actually like hold their feet to the fire a little bit, seal the exits, and like ask them to feel ask them to see what they haven't seen. And right. I think I saw you do that like as well. Like you're already in connection, you say the thing, and then more connection ensues. So it's like a balance between surrender and leadership, kind of like auspicious.
Yeah.
Circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know like how to relate it, but just the thing that I want to bring up is there's something that circling does incredibly well, which is this kind of being with another in their world.
Mm-hmm. Which is one of the 5 principles, right?
Yeah. For us with Circling Europe, we have these 5 principles, and yeah, it just seems important to mention that's equally a part as like any of those stages. Like you can be a warrior being with somebody in their world.
Right.
Like it happens to me not infrequently that somebody is kind of like, for example, they might have a lot of self-judgment, and they're like, oh, well, I just need to like get rid of this, right? Like this is really unhealthy, just positive thinking. Like, they've been told like self-judgment's no good, and so they're judging their self-judgment. But in a way, it's like if you really kind of start to tune in, and you see them as this totally innocent being, like of course they would have self-judgment if they live the life they live.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like you can see them through these eyes of innocence that they can't see themselves through. And then you can offer them that in a way that often challenges deeply to the core of who they think they are. So somebody's coming in and saying like, yeah, I'm just such a crappy person for this and this reason. And you're like, but I know that's bad to say that. And you're like, well, wait, let's see, like, what's true about that judgment? Are you a crappy person? And then it's like, and like, that's okay. And then this is a weird example, but then they're like, okay, yeah, actually I am crappy to this person for this reason, but I'm not for this reason. And we start getting clearer distinctions. I'm like, the self-judgment is dead on in work, but not in relationships. Or maybe with your kids, you're amazing, but with your husband, you're all crappy.
Yeah.
And so it's something like learning to trust these things that are arising in us while also building in that discernment is another huge piece of it for me.
Yeah, we do that a lot in our kind of advanced C games. Like, I just had that experience yesterday. A guy calling me out on something, and it was like, oh, I plead guilty to the energy of fuck you, but like not to the technical thing. And just there's some kind of release when I actually own up the part of me that was being a crappy human being.
Yeah, how was it? How was the willingness to do that?
It was easy because we were in a group of people I already knew and trusted, so the level of trust and surrender was high, and we kind of invited people's input into that conflict.
When you say trust is high, like what are you trusting?
Well, we talked about it in our debrief, and one of the things that we trust is the people who we already knew. Like there was one guy who didn't quite know, like he just kind of knew me, which was enough to get him in the room,
Yeah.
But then like his experience, I think what we trust is our own experience. So which is why it sometimes starts a little slow. One of my co-facilitators for C-Game is trained in matrix leadership, and she kind of insists that we do more of a ground of health or try to avoid like the initial conflict in groups that haven't been formed yet, to try to have some sweetness, to have a little bit of fabric together before, like building a fabric before we can put like a boulder on that fabric, and we'll support it.
How do you feel about
that? I'm open to it.
a little like,
Yeah, I'm more of an intensity junkie, right? So it's like, even when Amina did her breakout on Matrix, which I attended, she was like, I know they say we're just doing small talk, but it's not just small talk, It's like, yeah, I'm still figuring out if I have kind of I hate small talk in like real life, right? So it's like, but I think also in my gift in circles is often lobbing the grenade that opens things up. So, but I think I could probably learn the other side a little more, and I'm definitely open. Like our what we're up to with C-Game is we're basically creating a new practice, and we're in that creative mindset. Like I have to be open, I have to be open to learning what I don't know. So I love it.
I love that. Yeah, I have to be open.
You can't create from a closed, contracted space. Or like I know everything space.
Yeah. I'm just feeling that, like, I have to be open.
What are you feeling?
Almost like a potential, like a potential of lightness, like love.
Right. It's like it's not. It's not like I have to force myself to be open. It's like the what's her name, the Martha Graham quote. Like you just like you just have to keep the channel open to the inspiration that comes through you. I think it's that kind of I have to be open. You just have to remember that there's something bigger coming through.
Mm.
Just
Mm.
keep the door open.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that connection you have to what's bigger than you.
Yeah, I'm working on my faith. What inspires you? I mean, I've asked you this question before, but like how are how are Jordan and circling related?
In a way, it's what we were just talking about. Like, there's something bigger than me. Like, circling just kind of like was a wave that swept me up. And luckily, I had enough of a board that I could surf it. Yeah, and it kind of grew in a way really quickly, in a way kind of slowly. Like, I found it, I kind of liked it. I started leading circles, and then I got deeper and deeper until I was like building my entire life around it. So yeah, I think it was like a call that I answered, and like, I mean, I was in between a bunch of stuff, and like, yeah, I was like circling just because I loved it, and like doing modeling jobs on the side because I needed to like make money to just follow this passion.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it because of the deep sense of presence that's possible in every moment. And yeah, it was like I thought things were going really well in my life, and they were, but it was like I was at like 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see in the circles like having these experiences of, yeah, of like just almost like mystical experiences, seeing archetypes and crazy faces and light, and like going into darkness and despair that I didn't realize was inside of me. And like I can tend towards arrogance. So I felt like yeah, I felt like, oh, I never, like, I always was the driver of my own development. And like I had coaches and therapists, but like it was always kind of like, this is all right. None of it's that great. And then I got into circling, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, every circle, there's something I didn't see before about myself that's being like exposed to everyone. And like, I was also, part of my arrogance is bolstered by integral theory. So, in like developmental lenses. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pretty complex. And then I'm like, wait, now I'm getting like these new insights from like people that are, you know, at completely fundamentalist developmental levels, like amber or blue or third order. And like, they're giving me feedback that is like penetrating me to the core. And like, wait, that means I could be open to this kind of feedback from anyone at any time. And then suddenly like the waitress says something that touches my heart and I want to cry. And it's like life becomes this huge like theater or playground where I'm just constantly in love and being heartbroken. And it's like, yeah, I feel my heart now as I talk about it.
One last question. I have to go in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Who do you think like imagine that you could have anyone you want from the Bay Area come to this workshop, and like they all want to come, and we need to like filter some of them in and some of them out. Like who would this be? Who do you think would be especially good for this workshop? Like this would be good for them, and who do you think might want to like hang out and do some other stuff first? And specifically, is it like is there a certain amount of already existing self leadership that's required to actually enjoy and get this workshop?
It's a good question. Who I want to come is people who are just really curious and excited to explore something new. People who have that sense of have to be open to the mystery that you spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all that's required, and that really, bringing that in allows so much spontaneity and creativity to flow through us. And the self-organizing of the group just becomes magic. So yeah, when coming in with too many ideas of how it should be, you can still have an amazing time, but it just it's kind of it's kind of like trying to direct the flow of a river.
So how about even someone like me who like I love maps, right? So I love to geek out on the integral center circling map, on Guy's circling map. And if I was kind of new to it, I might hold on to those maps with a little more like fervor, like a little more like blue fervor. Like, would I, you know what I mean? Like, what the question is, like, would I be a good fit, or like, how do I be? Do you find that people who have had that experience, who are newly learned other types of circling, transition smoothly into your type?
Yeah, I mean, I love maps as well. Like and well, yeah, I really love maps. I wrote a book about integral theory through a zombie apocalypse lens, but because of my love for this map that I think is so meaningful. And I think there's a limit to the depth that we can go to without maps, like without being able to really understand what's happening. Like it's experience just kind of is, and then it goes. So it's kind of like a state experience for a lot of times, like a dream. It fades. Whereas, if you have a good map, it can really help one kind of ground into the experience and be more open to it. I think that's true of all maps. Like they can separate you from reality. You can be so busy looking at the map that you forget to enjoy what's happening. And it's helpful to be able to navigate so you can go to where the coolest stuff is instead of getting lost in like a bog or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the flip side is true as well. Like that the maps can have us relating to our ideas about reality instead of really being here. So if I relate to you as Mihai, the guy I know, that's useful and that I need that. But if I forget that you're also like a spontaneous, like self-cohering, like collection of multiple beings, then like I'm gonna box you into something that you're not actually, it's not true, and I'm gonna close myself to seeing these beautiful things about you that I never would open to. So yeah, I really encourage people to come with their maps and bring those in. Like those are gifts that they can offer the circle, when that arising comes, but also to hold them all very lightly. Because that's my map that I want to hold lightly as well.
Nice. I'm looking forward to this. It should be fun.
Yeah, I know I didn't answer your question about who not to come, but
I think, it's nicer to answer it in a positive. So, like, open-mindedness is the number one thing, is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'll talk to you later.
Lots of love.